Hello, everyone. Well, this month is a Women Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but today is a World Menopause Day, right? So we have brought a menopause well-being ambassador today to talk about all the issues that women go through at work if they are hitting perimenopause and menopause and beyond. We have Tina joining us from UK. She runs her own community. Let's talk menopause. Thank you so much, Tina.
Hi, thank you so much, Amita. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. It's such a big day for us women going through the menopause. Actually, October is Menopause Awareness Month. You've probably seen loads of activities online and news talk about menopause over the last 12 months, certainly in the UK for sure. Actually, it's quite staggering. It's estimated around 1 billion women worldwide will be experiencing menopause by 2025. And actually, the women experiencing menopause transition are one of the largest and fastest growing economic groups in the worldwide demographic. And actually, this also coincides with the age bracket during women are most likely to move into top leadership positions. So of course, women going through the menopause at some stage in their working life will actually go through symptoms, and that may impact them at work. And that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is how can the menopause impact you at work? We do actually have a few stages of menopause. I'll just briefly talk about that in case anyone's interested in that. So the stage of the menopause that's the most symptomatic is the perimenopause stage. Generally, you're in your 40s when you start that and can go through into your 50s. The reason it's so symptomatic is because your hormone levels fluctuate drastically and your estrogen levels can drop from one day to the next. So that actually has a significant impact on how you're feeling day to day. As you lead into the menopause, and menopause actually means when your periods stop, menopause is actually 12 months without a period, and that's when you're deemed to be reaching menopause. You can still be experiencing symptomatic symptoms at that point as well, and unfortunately it can last for a few years. I know some people that are in their 60s that are still suffering with menopausal symptoms. So this is a massive topic of conversation in the workplace at the moment. A lot of corporates are now having to put in place wellbeing programs to support women in the workplace going through the menopause. And it's actually not a surprise because of the symptoms that you can experience and how that can impact you in your day-to-day working lives.
So I do want to talk about a little bit more deeper. The stats of women who are going through perimenopause in the world is staggering. Almost 20% or maybe more. I'm just citing the statistics that what I've read online are working, right? And then suddenly you're sitting in a conference and suddenly those hot flashes and sweats, you start sweating, and then how do you cope up with these kind of situations? Because most of the people, even in, at workplace, don't understand necessarily why you started kind of going a little bit out of, out of control a little bit.
Absolutely.
From their angle, not from our angle.
Yeah, I've spoken to lots of women who, senior leaders in organizations that are, presenting on stage in large conferences and suddenly, one example where a senior leader had to present, and literally half an hour before she was due to present on stage, she went into a hot flush and she ended up having to get someone to go to the hotel to get a change of clothes because it was that bad. Having to deal with those sorts of things in the workplace and not being able to explain to your colleagues what's going on is really can be quite traumatic, actually. And it's not just those hot flushes, it's things like suddenly having a flood, because as you know, your periods are very erratic and suddenly you can end up with not expecting to have a period and suddenly you're caught out without anything and you have a flood. Also things like, basically your brain health as well, and your brain function is a massive symptom. Loads of women that I've spoken to suffer with brain fog. I've suffered with it myself, forgetting things. So again, if you can think about being in the middle of a meeting, maybe you're a manager running a meeting and you're online and suddenly, you forget what you're supposed to be saying and what you're supposed to be talking about. Or you actually, you suffer with, the brain fog is so bad, you can't actually even sometimes talk about what you're going to be saying. And it can actually have a massive effect on your confidence and knocking your confidence. And just silly things like even getting anxiety and finding that you can't drive, you know, you don't like driving to new places anymore. And if you're in a job where you need to drive to new places or meet new people and you get anxiety, that can be also a massive symptom that can actually be problematic in your workplace as well. So I think the main thing really about all of this is, you know, we can all deal with our symptoms, we find ways around them, but it's actually having to deal with them with our colleagues and having to make sure our colleagues understand what's going on and get that conversation started so that people know that you are having symptoms and it's nothing particularly to worry about, but, you know, it may cause you to forget things sometimes, or, you know, to need to leave a meeting room because you're having a hot flush. And not being frightened to talk about it to your colleagues so they know what's going on.
So, so what I think, I mean, is that it's not just the women who are going through perimenopause, menopause at work, but your colleagues and everyone has to be educated. Like everyone's educated about a pregnant woman where they're walking, or, you know, they know what the pregnant woman is going through. So everyone is considered the same way. Education has to happen across the board in corporate world, all over the world for that matter, that if someone is going through that, they might experience some kind of symptoms that are not normal, right?
Exactly. And I think education is key to men as well, because I've held quite a few Let's Talk Menopause sessions, and we've had a few men come onto those sessions, and actually they're there to educate themselves, for their colleagues, for the people in their team, for their wives or their sisters or their mothers, you know, people that they are close to, that they've seen going through the menopause and they haven't quite understood what's going on, because most women don't like to talk about it to men. And they've come along to my sessions just to find out what's going on. And it's actually been a massive eye-opener to them to know that, wow, this is why my colleague is experiencing this. So I think really educating our men is just as important. And, you know, as we know, it can affect relationships as well. So I think the more we can get the conversation out there, the more people feel comfortable talking about this topic, the better. And I think you've hit the nail right on the head. You know, pregnancy is talked about openly all the time. We actually celebrate when women go through puberty and they start their first period. We actually celebrate that. It's not something to be ashamed of. And we celebrate pregnancy. There's loads of support out there for pregnant women. But when we get to the menopause, it's actually something that's just not talked about. It's a taboo subject. But it's a natural stage of a woman's journey. It's a natural stage of their life. And so I think people should start feeling more comfortable to be able to have that conversation.
And you mentioned about the relationships, how menopause can also affect your personal relationship with your partner. Of course, at work, we know that a lot of education has to happen. Do you want to comment a little bit on the relationships and the women that you have talked to?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest factors that can happen with the menopause is things that can actually affect your relationship, such as lack of libido. Suddenly your libido can, you know, your sexual hormones fall through the floor, and estrogen is no more, you know, going around your body, and your libido can literally die. And that obviously has a massive impact on the intimacy in a relationship. And men don't understand that. You know, they may feel there's something wrong with me. You know, she doesn't like me anymore. She doesn't find me attractive. And again, you know, making them aware that that's not actually anything to do with them. It's just something that, you know, the woman's going through, and it's affecting their whole sense of themselves. And also just mood swings. You know, 1 minute we can be irritable, 1 minute we can be happy, 1 minute we can be sad. And I think, you know, again, it's quite interesting. When I had a conversation with my teenage daughter, who's at the other end of the spectrum, and her hormones, you know, going up and down, we quite often laugh and go, oh my God, we're feeling exactly the same way. And yet there's, you know, there's like 40 odd years between us. And I think, so I think really, you know, and again, you know, if you're open in your household, you've got men in your household, if you're open to have that conversation and educate, you know, your sons as well, it's only going to help everyone, all the women in the future, if we can start to be more open about these sorts of topics in general. But yes, it can have a massive impact on relationships. And I think also, you know, if we think about the stage of the life we're going through at that point, we have quite a lot on our shoulders as women. We may actually be looking after elderly parents. We probably have a family that we're also looking after. We're probably haven't got a full-time job. We're juggling lots and lots of things, which normally we can cope with really easily. And then suddenly the menopause hits, and kind of that throws us a bit off kilt, because really then we've got to deal with that as well. So I think it's really the timing of all of this that kind of contributes to a lot of factors in terms of our mental health and our mental well-being.
And I know both of us are not healthcare professionals, but there is a lot of other things that women can do, like breathing techniques, like some of the yoga, some of the diet. Do you want to comment how the diet and some of the other
Sure.
things can help women cope up with all these symptoms that we are talking about?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the most known solution is HRT. Unfortunately, not everyone can take HRT. I can't take HRT. I had breast cancer last year, so my HRT journey was very short. And of course, if you can't take HRT, then there's no one solution that's going to help you with all your symptoms. It's a case of trying different things. The things we do know help, which we know are good for us anyway as women, is drinking plenty of water, lots of exercise, definitely meditation, yoga, Pilates, things that can actually de-stress us, because stress also is a massive contributor to how we feel in terms of our symptoms as well. Nutrition and diet is really, really key, making sure you eat the right things. There's certain foods that actually have natural estrogen in them. So looking up for those sorts of foods and eating those can actually help boost in terms of your hormones as well. Not drinking as much alcohol, cutting down on that glass of wine at night. Not smoking. The things that we already know we should be doing are incredibly important as we get to this stage. And actually, even before we get to this stage in our 40s, we should already be starting to look at that and how we, what our lifestyle's like and how we can kind of tweak a few things and make those adjustments.
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted to emphasize, that, we women, as we start treading towards 40s and beyond, we need to modify our lifestyle accordingly so that, we can have a better management of all the symptoms that's going to hit us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else? This is a quick 10-minute session that we bring on a daily basis, educating women on different kind of topics that concern them when they are hitting 40 and beyond. Today is especially a World Menopause Day, so we wanted to bring someone like you. Anything else you'd like to add or talk or tell women how to empower themselves? That's really the key here, is women empowerment in a different way, but this is also empowerment.
Yeah, I think my biggest tip will be educate yourself. There's lots of resources out there on the menopause. If you haven't had a conversation with your doctor and you're thinking about going to your doctor to talk about HRT, for example, make sure you go to the doctor armed with as much information as you can, because not all of them really understand the menopause at the moment, unfortunately. And maybe keep a diary, keep a diary of your symptoms before you go to the doctor, so you can actually show them what's actually happening, because quite often symptoms can be other things. The symptoms you're having may not be menopausal. I want to say that first of all. Always get yourself checked out if you're experiencing something unusual. And what a doctor will probably do is look at how many symptoms you have. If you've got a number of symptoms of that menopause, I think 37 symptoms, whatever it is now, then they'll look at that and go, okay, maybe it's menopause. So keeping that diary of your symptoms is really important, just so you can go to the doctor armed with as much information to help them, come to a uniform decision on what's going on with you and your health. But don't be frightened to talk about it. Make sure you have that conversation at home. Make sure you have that conversation in the workplace. And anything I can do to help at any point, just please reach out.
I just wanted to add, I was reading an article yesterday that a lot of women in their late 30s, they haven't even hit 40 yet, but they are getting symptoms of perimenopause, right? And that's concerning and disturbing if someone is trying to start a family and suddenly they're now being hit with perimenopause symptoms. Do you have any comment on this kind of a scenario?
Yeah, I've spoken to women that are in early menopause before they're 30, hit 30, and incredibly traumatic for them, because generally it means that they are unable to start a family as well. So that's a whole load of other issues that they have to deal with. And also you can be thrown straight into menopause through surgical procedures. So you could have a surgical procedure or treatment that throws you straight into menopause, and you could be quite young at that point as well. So there are other reasons that will throw you into menopause, not just the natural cycle. So it is a big topic. It affects so many people worldwide, and that's why we need to talk about it more.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That's what we are talking today, to, bring awareness, bring empowerment to women who are hitting this beautiful stage. I want to say that, and also continue to educate. And we're going to be launching these programs specifically for women over 40. That's what our mission is, and our passion is to be, educating these women and empowering them. So stay tuned. Any last words from you before I wrap up today's session? Are you welcome to share your Insta or any of the social handles?
Thank you. No, I just want to say that we are amazing. Us women are amazing. Feel proud of being a woman, and just take the menopause by the horns and give it a big old shake, and you'll get through the other side.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tina. And to all the women out there, enjoy this day and celebrate. That's
Thank you. Thank you, Mita. Take care. Thank you. Bye.